Good day, students! We are now in the lesson 4 of our English class for the first quarter. The most essential learning competency that we are going to achieve for today's lesson is to evaluate spoken text using given criteria, including fluency, tone, cohesion, and correctness. The other specific objectives that we are going to achieve for today's lesson are: first, employ appropriate pitch, stress, juncture, intonation, etc. Second is to determine how volume, projection, pitch, stress, intonation, juncture, and speech rate serve as carriers of meaning. Now, what is a speech? Speech is the way you structure the placement and movement of your articulations, your lips, teeth, and tongue to produce a series of vowels and consonant sounds. It is how people use words to communicate and express their ideas and thoughts by means of articulate vocal sounds. Aside from speech, we also have the voice. Voice is the sound uttered or produced by humans and other creatures using the lungs and the vocal folds in the larynx or voice box. When someone calls you, you could easily identify the voice or recognize his feelings or emotions based on how they talk. We can identify or recognize whether they are feeling happy, sad, nervous, or other emotions based on how they speak. It reflects a great deal about us as individuals. With our voice, we can also whisper or shout. We can also roar, suggest, and demand. We can also announce, declare, assert, and affirm. A speaker can vary the elements of sounds for emphasis. If the speech, volume, rhythm, and timbre of a voice never fluctuate, you will be speaking in a monotone. Speaking in a monotone voice is a real speaking communication killer. When the variety of your voice pitch does not vary, it is impossible for the listeners to maintain their interest on what you are saying. Moreover, even though you have spoken the words you want to say, the audience or the listeners may receive meaning indifferent from what you intend to say. Let us all remember that voice is the music of your communication and speech is the lyrics. When used well together, they create a song worth hearing. Since you all now know the speech and the voice, let's go now to the prosodic features of speech. Now, let's identify prosody. Prosody is concerned with those elements of speech that are not individual phonetic segments but are properties of syllables and larger units of speech. Today, we are going to discuss about prosodic features of speech, and these are features that appear when we put sounds together in connected speech. This is very important to learn if you want to become a successful speaker. Prosodic features of speech include volume, projection, pitch, stress, intonation, juncture, and speech rate. The first feature is volume. It is the degree of loudness or softness of the tone. It is perceived as auditory sensation by the listener, which can be ordered on a scale from quiet to loud. What's the use of volume? This is also used to show emotions such as fear or anger. In writing, it can be shown by the use of an exclamation mark, capitals, or italics. Moreover, volume can be used in combination with intonation in order to make certain syllables or certain words clearer. Using louder volume helps you get extra attention to your emotions and attitude and emphasizes which words are most important. The speaker raises his volume when he is saying something important. However, such a loud voice may annoy or distract listeners, while voice that is soft may lead listeners to not be able to hear words. Think about when you are engaged in a conversation with someone. How do you use levels of volume? Sometimes you speak more quietly because what you are saying is a little secret, or you also use soft voice when you are sad or frustrated. Thus, the use of volume is very important when we are speaking. Let's imagine that we are going on a trip this year, but it was cancelled due to this pandemic. Sometimes we speak with our emotions and energy because we are excited, angry, happy, or other emotions that we want to express through our volume. I have here an example sentence. I cannot wait to see my classmates when this community quarantine ends. What do you think is my emotion? Changing the volume alerts the listeners to the nuances of the message and may also mean a change of an idea or an approach. Thus, volume is really important feature of speech. Next feature that we have is projection. The same thing with volume. Projection helps the speaker to have a smooth communication by helping listeners on better understanding what they want to say. This refers to how speakers control the volume, clarity, and distinctness of their voice to be more audible. Good projection helps speakers present their thoughts very well. This is a way to express or convey their emotions. This is also important to alert our listeners that something important is about to be said. When it comes to projection, pronunciation is very important as it helps speakers to explain correctly what they want to say. Projection for speakers are very important. Speakers should maintain their projection in the entire speech. Sometimes, speakers forget to remember the loudness and they get quiet eventually. Sometimes, they do not notice as well that they are already shouting. Suppose that you are going to deliver a speech in front of your classmates. Remember to have projection always. You must avoid shouting as this is very different from delivering a speech with a good projection. Another feature is pitch. Pitch is the relative highness or lowness of a tone as perceived by the ear, which depends on the number of vibrations per second produced by the vocal cords. This is important to draw the listener's attention to words or phrases that are more important than others. When speaking, you have to have a range of pitches to convey different meanings. All languages use pitch as intonation to communicate different meanings. They use this to emphasize, to convey surprise or irony, or to pose a question. Pitch can be connected to intonation as well. Another feature is intonation. Just like what I said earlier, pitch is connected to intonation. Intonation is the rise and fall of the voice when speaking. There are 4 types of intonation when we are speaking. Rising intonation, this means that pitch of the voice rises over time. Falling intonation, this means that the pitch falls with time. Dipping intonation, this means that pitch falls and then rises. And peaking intonation, this means that pitch rises and then falls. If you want to inform someone that you saw her in the Starbucks, you could say, I saw you in the Starbucks last time. Here, the intonation is falling. Another example is if you want to ask someone if she saw you in the Starbucks, you could ask, did you really see me in the Starbucks? Here, the intonation is rising. We can also use dipping intonation when we are hesitant. For example, that's true, but it is not always the case. Another example is the picking intonation. This is when you want to say a list. You could say, we can count on family, friends, and even neighbors. This time, let's take a look at these words. Do we pronounce them in the same manner? Of course, the answer is no. The pronunciation is based on their emphasis on the syllables. This is called stress. Stress is the relative emphasis that may be given to certain syllables in a word, certain words in a phrase, or even sentence. Stressed syllables are louder than non-stressed syllables. They are longer and have higher pitch. Let's go back to these words. Photograph. The syllable or the stress is on the first syllable. Photographer. The stress is on the second syllable. Photographic. The stress is on the third syllable. We use stress to change the meaning of the word. During a speech, the speaker can also use stress to get the attention of the listeners or to give emphasis to the words. Let's try to identify the rules in applying stress. Stress can be put on the first syllable when there are two-syllable nouns. For example, vaccine, treatment, illness. We can also apply stress in the first syllable if the adjectives have two syllables. For example, rapid, active. We can also put stress on the last syllable if the verbs have two syllables. For example, infect, prevent, protect, transmit, or discharge. Sometimes, stress can be put on the first and last syllable as well. These change the meaning of the word. We have present, present. The first word is a noun, while the second word is a verb. The first word, present, means existing or occurring now, while the second word means to offer or to give. We can also put the stress on the penultimate syllable. We can see the stress on the second to the last syllable of a word. For example, we have here the words ending in IC. Pandemic, asymptomatic, pharmaceutic. We also have here the words ending in shon or shon. Isolation, medication, ventilation, transmission. We can also put stress on the antepenultimate syllable. Example, the words ending in cy, ty, phy, or gy, we have emergency, productivity, epidemiology. We also have here words ending in al. We have psychological, professional. We can put also stress on sentences. For example, Nikki didn't take the exam yesterday, meaning to say, Nikki was not the one who took the test, but somebody else. Nikki didn't take the exam yesterday. Nikki really did not take the test yesterday. Nikki didn't take the exam yesterday, meaning to say, Nikki did something else with it. Nikki didn't take the exam yesterday, meaning to say, she took something else. Nikki didn't take the exam yesterday, meaning to say, she took it the other day. Putting stress on different words give us different meaning. Thus, it is important to put the stress on the proper syllable. Juncture is also important in delivering a speech. This is another feature of prosodic, feature of speech. This refers to breaks or pauses in speech that indicate words or other grammatical units. Juncture is phonemic. It changes the meaning. For example, we have here, Ice cream. Ice cream. That's tough. That's tough. An aim. A name. My train. Might rain. More ice. More rice. Let's have this one in a sentence. The clock keeps ticking. The children keep sticking things on the wall. These words sound the same, but the way we pause can make a difference. We can distinguish the difference between these words by pausing. Next one is the speech rate. This refers to the speed at which you speak. It can be slow, too slow, fast, or too fast. If the speaker speaks slow, there is a calmness, acceptance of others, or formality in his tone. If she or he speaks too slow, there is dullness, laziness, or lack of intelligence. If the speaker speaks fast, there is an enthusiasm, excitement, and informality. When she or he speaks too fast, there is nervousness, tension, anxiety, or flighty personality. And this ends our lesson about prosodic features of speech. I hope you can apply this one on our next activity.